maybe it's a bit like a bulldog or a pug dog. Very ugly when you first see them, but then you kind of grow to love them the more you deal with them. So many more modern SUVs could learn a thing or two from this about how to use interior space.
From a mechanical perspective, what's not to love here? It's an SUV with Evo running gear. Actually, wait. There is definitely something to not love.
Between you and I've never driven a transcontinental container ship, but I'm pretty confident that it has a better turning circle than this car. Now look, generally speaking, incest is not something that should ever be encouraged because most of the time the results can be totally disastrous. However, about 25 years ago in Japan, a bunch of engineers tried some of this breeding within the family thing, and this was the result. And it can be quite something. The Mitsubishi Airtrek Turbo R is basically what happens when a Lancer Evo 7 and a first generation Mitsubishi Outlander get all hot and bothered and combine their DNA. The result is a conservative practical SUV with the running gear of a rally-bred performance car. And look, yes, this does make for a fascinating proposal and it's very, very tempting, but it doesn't mean it's actually any good, let alone if you should buy one or not. So how about we take you through everything you need to know about these things. Actually, before we get into this, we're going to do this video a little bit differently than usual. It's going to be a shorter express review because this being such a unique and special car, it deserves something a little bit different. But firstly, how the hell did this happen in the first place? It's important to remember that crossover SUVs were beginning to boom in popularity in the late 1990s and early 2000s. First we had the RAV4, followed by Honda's HR-V and CR-V, the Subaru Forester and the Nissan X-Trail. Mitsubishi really needed to join this party and the Outlander, or the Airtrek as it is known in Japan, was its ticket in. But it was also through the late 90s and early noughties that Mitsubishi were experiencing huge success with its rally program. Tommy Mäkinen won 4 consecutive World Drivers' Championships in various Evo Lancers, while the Pajero Evolution dominated the Dakar Rally with multiple podium finishes during the same period. Also, this was a time that many consider Mitsubishi to have reached its financial peak, with high profits, healthy sales, and a reputation for innovative engineering. And when the coffers are full and the public image and respect for the brand are at its highest, what better way to capture the market's attention while also promoting an important new car than to use existing Evo Lancer running gear to create a performance halo model, then keep it exclusive by only selling it in very low volumes. This then broadened the car's appeal and gave Mitsubishi a performance flagship SUV, but without the full-blown development program and huge expense that would be required for a whole new performance car. It's just a bit of a shame that it's a bit ugly. I mean, like in standard form, it's not the most instantly attractive car. This thing's direct competitor was the Subaru Forester, the first gen GT, and that I think is a very appealing car instantly when you look at it. This with its kind of quad headlight design and narrow grille, yeah, I don't know. Although look, in saying that, maybe it's a bit like a bulldog or a pug dog where they're very ugly when you first see them, but then you kind of grow to love them the more you deal with them. At least when they're in stock form, when they're wearing aftermarket wheels like this and the body kit, let alone if it's wearing Evo 9 rims, just like this one. I cannot believe that these wheels make the entire car look so much more contemporary. It doesn't translate on camera, but this thing looks hot. Also, the looks in standard form might not be the only bad news when it comes to the exterior, because according to the owners, the window regulators are a known issue. You're going to need to budget for those. Also, the paint on the bonnet scoop fading or flaking, another known issue. Also, if it has come from or is living in a cold climate, rust can become an issue. Make sure you check under the bonnet around the heat shield. That's a problem area. And also, obviously, the exterior can suffer from the usual wear and tear stuff that any 20-year-old car can. Make sure you check the door and window seals. Actually, anything made of rubber or plastic. Check it out. Also, being an import and being over 20 years old, if you require any replacement exterior panels or pieces of trim, just getting them can be maybe a little bit more of a challenge than you're expecting, and some of this stuff can ask quite the premium. And also, being a grey import, that can bring with it quite a few concerns, but don't stress, we have made a full import buyer's guide video, the link for that's down below. Overall, but just stick with a trusted importer like Justin from Colton Classic that brought this one in. He's a legend, we work with him all the time. Check him out, the link's below. Now, if there was ever a visual clue that you've entered the realms of late 90s and early 2000s Japanese cars, it's the ocean of black and grey plastics and vinyls that are the interior of these cars. However, something that no one ever talks about is the smell that these cars have. Every Japanese car from this era, it all has the same kind of smell. Just be careful, because sometimes this delicious smell may have been replaced with the odor of decomposing cigarettes, because that was very popular in Japan of this time, and it's gross. And also, with the age of these cars, expect some of the plastics to be a bit brittle. So a few rattles and squeaks and weird creaks, it's probably going to happen. Also, there can be a few reports of the air conditioning system stuffing up. Sometimes it's as simple as a relay to fix, other times it's a much larger issue. Check the owners groups and forums for advice on this, they are excellent. Look, anyway, inside, like the exterior, this thing isn't going to go winning any awards for interior design. But for me, that just sort of adds to the charm of the car. Yeah, it's a 20-year-old Outlander, but it's just simple and functional. This is how interiors should be. What I mean by that is, unlike so many modern cars where you need months to familiarize yourself with what everything does, or you need a computer engineering degree just to work out how to turn on the air conditioning, this is simple. Look, knobs, and they feel nice to use, and it just makes sense, and there's hardly any of them. This is such a refreshing interior to be in compared to so many new cars. Even in terms of actually using it, so many more modern SUVs could learn a thing or two from this about how to use interior space. Honestly, something like an Audi Q8 compared to this in terms of where to put all your crap, this thing wins. Check this out. You've got great sized glove box there. You've got little cubby hole here. You've got flip out cup holders here and a little tray. And these have got little fingery bits to hold your small pretentious coffees in there, like an oat piccolo. But then under here, you've got loads of storage under here. But then this armrest, that also pulls down, and it's height adjustable. You've got a bin here to collect more crap. You've got okay sized door bins. They're a bit on the shallow side. You've got more storage under there. There's, underneath the seats, there's no specific storage, but there's so much room under there, so much room for activities. This is brilliant. Although one area that these do really fall down compared to modern cars is the infotainment system. If this has a standard system in it, it sucks. Obviously at this age there's no kind of phone connectivity whatsoever, and the standard speakers, they've probably had the sword by now. However, if you do find one like this where you've got the standard infotainment system, I don't think you want to go cutting this out and putting an aftermarket Apple CarPlay system in necessarily. I think it will kind of ruin the car's aesthetic. But what you can do is you can get under the seat or hidden Bluetooth modules, so you can just have your phone connect to it wirelessly and you get all your modern phone connectivity without ruining the design of the interior. Also, massively underrated modification you can make to improve the sound quality, aside from obviously replacing the speakers, is fitting more sound deadening within the panels. Honestly, makes such a massive difference. And look, our tip for all of this stuff, as well as aftermarket suspension components, performance engine parts, car cleaning, dash cams, whatever you need, check out our mates at Automotive Superstore. The link is down below. They've got everything you're gonna need. Now look, Mitsubishi are generally renowned for offering immense value for money when it comes to features and equipment, but we are talking about a 20-year-old car here. Let's not go expecting a copious amounts of bells and whistles. Most won't have cruise control. Safety equipment extends to a couple of airbags, ABS and seatbelts, and that's about the extent of it. And if it has a rear view camera, that thing has about the same resolution as a 1970s adult film. Not that I know what that looks like. Actually, speaking of dealing with rogue liquids, how annoying are old wiper blades? Plus some of the aftermarket stuff you can get is just utter rubbish. And then what some of the manufacturers charge for their OEM replacement blades can be daylight robbery. You know what? Avoid all of these issues. Hit the Wipertech link below to get 15% off and free express shipping on the only wiper blades we use, because they are some of the best blades in the business. Check them out, links down there. Now in the back seat, I'm exactly 15 centimeters taller than Mitsubishi Rally legend Tommi Mäkinen. This is, no, Cal, that's Mika Hakkinen. No, that's Kimi Räikkönen. No, that's Heikki Kovalainen. That's Tommi Mäkinen. Anyway, this is in my driving position, and I'm blown away at how great this backseat area is. Loads of footroom, my knees aren't smashed against the back of the seat. The windows are really large and the roof's really tall, so it feels spacious back here. The seats themselves, really comfortable. No real support, and that's going to be a challenge because this thing can go around corners like an Evo, so wish it did have some support there. Oh, also, the seats, you can change the recline position from primary school just before lunchtime through to teenager having a snooze at the end of a tough day. This is, honestly, I was not expecting this backseat area, oh come on, there we go, to be this impressive. So good. As far as practicality and features back here, you've got pocket, armrest, 2 cup holders, spot for lice filth there, and I hate to say it, but it was Japan in the late 90s, early 2000s, an ashtray. Gross. And then as far as space in the boot goes, well, it's an Outlander. It's an SUV. Of course it's going to be practical. There's heaps of room. Plus, the seats fold completely flat. So it's bloody huge back here. Also, there is a bit of a load lip. That's a little bit annoying, but not the end of the world. Oh, and also there's more storage under here. But overall, yeah, ultra practical. Now, before we get into what these are like to drive, I've got to ask you a bit of a naughty question. If you haven't done already, can you give that subscribe button a bit of a fondle? Because doing so allows us to make more free videos for you, and surely that's a good thing, yeah? And if you're feeling particularly frisky, why not check out our full membership program as well? The link for that's down below, because you're going to get a few more ReDriven perks. Anyway, now look, we'll do the good stuff in a second. We've got to do the bad news first, and the first thing is just getting the car to operate and steer in the first place. The immobilizer apparently can play havoc with the steering column, and you've got to kind of give it a bit of a shake while turning the key to unlock it. Just kind of, it's old car stuff, it happens. Now, speaking of the steering, look, between you and I've never driven a transcontinental container ship, but I'm pretty confident that it has a better turning circle than this car. You're going to need to do the whole Austin Powers 55-point turns pretty much anytime you try to park it or maneuver it. Also, quite a few owners have complained about the fuel consumption, to the point that some have even sold the car because it has been so bad, even though they've loved everything else about the car. I completely agree. What she said. Now, after trawling through the owners groups and forums, about the best fuel consumption figure we could find was 9 litres per 100 Ks. I highly doubt that. The worst we found was 17 litres per 100 Ks, and we're not talking about like a track day, just normal driving. The average amongst owners tends to hover around about the 12 litres per 100 K mark. But easily the biggest complaint we came across in terms of the driving experience was down to the automatic gearbox, and not in the fact that it's slow and sluggish. Obviously it is, it's an old school automatic, but it was actually more reliability and mechanical concerns with this thing. I can't elaborate on that, but we're gonna let Jim, our resident mechanic, talk about it in a second. But now to the bit you've been waiting for, the good aspects of the driving experience. What is this thing like? Well, you know what? This might surprise you, but it kind of feels like Evo running gear wrapped in an SUV body, but that's not a bad thing. To give you some context, it has been pouring with rain here for the last few days. These roads are so slippery, but this thing, it just feels bolted to the ground, especially through the corners. The front end just feels nailed down like an Evo. And then power-wise, yeah, like, it's quick. Think sort of Volkswagen Polo GTI kind of performance, maybe Ford Fiesta ST, maybe not quite as quick as that. But being an Evo engine, we all know this engine is capable of some crazy horsepower, and this one does feel like it's being held back massively. Also, ride quality, I wasn't expecting it to be this good. It is firm, but not unbearable. There are plenty of modern performance cars that could learn a thing or two about the ride quality in this. But also, you don't have to go fast in it. Like all Evos, the steering feels fantastic. So even just doing the speed limit around the suburbs is enjoyable because there's so much feedback, both through the wheel and also through the seat of your pants. And then because the vision out is so good, it's easy to park, it's easy to deal with in traffic. And I was also expecting way more rattles and squeaks because a lot of owners have problems with that. But in this one, no. There's a few bits of plastic kind of making themselves heard, but it's not bad. And then look, the gearbox, yeah, I do agree with the owners. It is a bit of a slush box, and using the buttons on the steering wheel is hilarious. Using the shifter is way better, but then it's not in the right order. To go up a gear, you should pull back, not push forward. That's messed up. Look, overall, it feels like driving what you'd expect from pretty much one of the first performance, smallish crossover SUV things. It does a great job. It feels old school in all the right ways, but it could also be improved in all the right ways as well. But the only issue with doing that is when you modify a car, it can bring up all sorts of complications in terms of reliability. What's the story on that? And these gearboxes, what's the go? I can't tell you about it because I'm not a qualified mechanic. But you know who is? It's Jim.
The 4G63 is arguably one of the best Mitsubishi engines ever made, I think. It's a great tuner platform, and the Evo is still very popular in so many motorsport applications. In stock form, if it's been well serviced and it's had a timing belt every 100,000 Ks or so, you're not likely to have too many problems at all. All of the engine seals and gaskets are getting pretty hard at this age, so you are likely to see some oil leaks. Valve cover leaks are common, and rear main oil seals too. The front crank seal is a known leak as well. If the front crank seal is leaking, you really need to get that sorted because of the timing belt. If oil gets on that, it will weaken it. Cooling systems and radiators, they should be on your watch list. They're all starting to get a bit old and crusty and likely to need replacing. Be very careful with all of the engine bay plastic electrical plug connectors, especially the ones exposed to heat, like the coil connections, for example. The plugs just deteriorate and pretty much break when you try and disconnect them. So yeah, be very careful with them. And now to the part of the mechanical package you're probably not going to like. It's the transmissions. Look, these are prone to failure. They're under a lot more pressure than their, normally aspirated front-wheel drive siblings. They really do cop a caning. Fresh oil in these is a must. If you dip the stick and it's dark and it stinks, it is well past its use-by date. Plenty of owners complaining about slipping transmissions and delayed and harsh shifting. Look, they are all signs of a problem. They're prone to torque converter issues, clutch pack issues, and valve body issues. And look, crusty old burnt oil makes all of that way worse. So you need to keep them serviced. Basically, if you're feeling anything abnormal with the shifting, you need to get it checked out and repaired ASAP before it has a catastrophic failure that's way beyond repair, or more importantly, way beyond your budget to repair. Now, so you don't have to try and remember all of that information, we've listed it all on our free Airtrek cheat sheet. The link is down below.
But how much are one of these going to cost you? Well, at the bottom end of the market for something that really its only role is going to be as a project car, you're looking at around about $5,000. At the other end of the spectrum, something mint like these two, under 20 grand. But compare this to the mechanical package that this is based on, an Evo 7 GTA, they're going to be asking $20,000 to $30,000. An automatic Evo 9 wagon, well, they kick off from $25,000 and they top out at around about $40,000. As for direct alternatives outside of Mitsubishi, a Subaru Forester GT or XT ranges from a couple of $1,000 through to about $15,000. Although if it comes wearing an STI badge from the factory, well, its price is going to top out at around about $40,000. So considering all this, the Airtrek can look like quite the bargain, and a tempting one at that. However, these things really only are for real enthusiasts. Actually, really any 20-year-old Japanese performance car are these days. Look, an Airtrek is going to require both substantial TLC and finances to keep it at its best. And if you can't provide that, sorry, don't buy it. It's going to be more trouble than you're willing to deal with. However, if you do fit that description, please buy one, because these are such a cool and unique car. They need to be on the road so we can all enjoy them. And also, a bit like incest, nepotism should never be encouraged, although in saying that, sometimes giving your less redeeming cousin a leg up, that can be a good thing. This proves it. However, before you go diving in to buy one of these, you gotta check one of these out first. Now, that's not just any old normal Nissan X-Trail. That's another sensible SUV with a factory-fitted turbocharged heart of a performance car. Check it out, it's worth a look. Now, we've made an entire import guide by, whoa, my brain. No!